Imagine, if you will, you are a mailman. This is your job, and it is a simple job. You arrive at a location, and you are given a box. Well, it doesn't need to be a box. It can be a letter, or an envelope, or even a giant crate, but that's not important. You are given a box, and you are given it for one purpose: to deliver it to its designated location. That is your job, and you love your job. So you do your job, so you deliver it to the place that it is supposed to be. It feels great. It feels like you are helping people. You love your job. You have to deliver this box. Sometimes you walk. Sometimes you drive. Sometimes you take the set tracks of the trains. Sometimes your delivery lets you meet strange people.
Hello.
Sometimes you have funny conversations.
I'm glad your dad died.
Sometimes you encounter someone that you form a genuine connection with.
I like your shoes. Mind if I steal them?
But you still have a package to deliver. You should probably deliver that package. So you go on your merry way to your destination. Do you take the quickest path? If so, great. Did you take a detour because the road was blocked? That's fine. Take a different path. Did you go on to a different adventure and do something amazing on the way? As long as you deliver your package on time, everything is great. This is great. Your job is great. You have fun experiences. You meet new people. You do something that gives you a sense of fulfillment in your life. You have a purpose in this world, and you make sure you fulfill your purpose. But that does not matter. Fundamentally speaking, there is only one thing that matters: that you deliver the package to its designated location. It doesn't matter if you are happy, it doesn't matter who you meet, it doesn't even matter what path you take. The one thing that truly matters is that you do the thing you are supposed to do. As long as you do that, everything remains well. But what if it isn't well? One day you go to a location and you are to deliver a package, but you don't have a package. You ask, but you're only told that you deliver it to the location. But how can you deliver a package that you don't have to a location? Deliver it to the location, they respond. Eventually, you just go. Maybe you'll get the package on the way. Yeah, that's supposed to happen. So you walk to the destination. You make sure to take the expected path, because how else are you supposed to get the package if you go the wrong way? Someone will definitely give it to you. Except no one is. Nobody is giving you the thing you are supposed to have so you can do your job. Even that, everybody just seems weird.
The walls are falling.
They aren't acting like they usually do. They're talking about something that you can't quite discern.
28, 4, 70, 70, 70,
But
70,
even so,
70,
nobody
70,
is giving you a
70,
package.
70, 70, 70,
Finally,
70,
you arrive at your
70,
destination.
70,
You're
70,
told
70,
that you did
70,
great.
70,
You
70,
did
70,
what you were
70,
supposed to do.
70,
You
70,
fulfill
70,
your
70,
purpose.
70,
Except
70,
you
70,
didn't.
70, 70,
You were
70,
supposed to
70,
deliver a
70,
package,
70,
and you
70,
didn't.
70,
You
70,
did
70, 70,
nothing.
70, 70,
Everybody is
70,
acting
70,
weird.
70,
Everything is out of sorts.
70,
Something has gone horribly wrong. You know how a video essayist will start a video with something tangentially related to the topic? Well, this serves a purpose. It helps you get a baseline understanding about what the video is about. It also serves the purpose of a thought experiment to grab your attention. I also did that thing with video essays that points out what other video essayists do. It also serves the purpose of showing you how self-aware I am, providing funny haha moment. I'm also saying this while I have this cool-looking essay Sona for you to look at. Art made by me too. This also serves the purpose of giving you a face to associate with my voice. Humans are very social creatures, so we are hardwired to focus on a person when we are having a one-on-one conversation with, even if it's one-sided. Even the aspect ratio serves a purpose. Since I will be talking about Deltarune, a game that uses 4:3 ratio, and I want to replicate it. Even though the thumbnail is 60:9, which, in a couple of days, you may notice that it'll be something different. This serves the purpose of rebooting the YouTube recommendation.
Get on with it! Yes! Get on with it!
Point is... referencing an old movie serves a purpose of cracking a joke. Oh, come on! That was funny, and you know it! Deltarune. I don't need to introduce Deltarune. Everybody knows what Delta's Rune is. It's the hit RPG follow-up to the even bigger hit Under's Tale, from the hit musician and storyteller game developer Toby's Folk. If you haven't heard of this game, let alone played it, please do. I highly recommend it. It has done irreparable damage to my psyche. But you want to know what's done even more damage? This thing. Oh, look at the little scraggy braggy. Look at the little Lorma Borma. My sweet little Sowlot. This is Plock 2. This disgusting yet popular animal has invaded the mind, hearts, and souls of many fans, and honestly, who can blame them? You're telling me if you saw him standing outside of your door, you wouldn't unlock all of the windows in your house? I love Ralsei. He is amazing and adorable, and he is definitely hiding a plot twist behind a tablecloth, but that's a story for another time. Alright, time's up. What the fuck is his deal? I swear, every time he does literally anything, it feels like it's written to be completely disarming, yet we know for a fact he knows more than he should. He knows a lot of things that he shouldn't know, can't know, must not know. What is it? Is he evil? Is he Asriel? Is he gay? Is he Gaster? Is he a Lightner? Is he Crayon? Toby, I need to know, does Ralsei smoke his lettuce? It's said that the way to truly write a great character is less about how good they are or how funny they are or what they do. The best thing to do is to make them truly rememberable. To make it so that even after you close the book or turn off the TV for the final time and walk away, even after that, you're still thinking about it. A story that is powerful enough to remain in your memory is a story that has meaning to you. Umineko is a game that has a permanent residence in my mind. Pathologic is a game that has a permanent residence in my mind. Deltarune remains there as well. Actually, now thinking about it, Umineko, Pathologic, and Deltarune are all very similar games. I guess I just love games that are heavily story-focused and use the fact that it is a story in a video game as an element in the story, but that's something I don't want to unpack right now. But back to the main topic. Is Ralsei a good character? In that, is he rememberable? I mean, just look up his name on YouTube and you'll find 10 billion videos on him alone. Everybody has Ralsei brain rot. Everybody knows about Ralsei. Ralsei is pretty much one of the things that people will remember about Deltarune, which is very funny when you think about it. For a dude who is in-universe, forgotten about all the time, he is the fixation of everybody in the real world. Put that boy in a situation. He reminds me a lot of Sans, to be honest. Everybody knows Sans. Even if you haven't played Undertale, you have seen that Bone Man smile. If there's one character in all of Undertale that you will remember in 50 years, it will be Snaz. So, how is Sans in universe? The man's literally a comic man. Sans is the most dude-ass man in the history of just some guys. He speaks in jokes and makes puns all the time. He barely puts any effort into his work. He literally speaks in Comic Sans. He drinks ketchup. This man is like a staple of internet meme culture. The creme de la creme of this game. The most remembered character in a story. And in game, he's literally just some joke character. Then we remember that he isn't. Sans is a very unique character in the game. In-universe, he's something like a judge, an arbiter of the sins you've committed. He knows everything you did, he can read you like a book, and it's basically all but confirmed that he knows that he is a character in a video game. He knows that nothing he can ever do will matter in the end. He serves no purpose other than to tell you your final score after completing a race. That is the only thing he does. That is the only thing he is supposed to do. And if you made the number go up enough, then he will offer you a challenge that you want. No. The punishment you deserve. That is the purpose he serves. Sometimes I wonder what kind of purpose I would serve if I was a video game character. Normally one would want to be the main character, but I think that one thing that this game has shown is that being the audience surrogate is a fate worse than death. Instead, I would probably be a lore character. Some guy you would talk to about something, then you get a 5-page thesis on something else you didn't even ask, and it always seems like I'm about to start talking about the thing you want me to talk about before I mention something else, and I begin to ramble endlessly on something that is only tangentially related. Gee, I wonder why I get that feeling. We all want to feel like we serve a purpose, like we do something that matters in some way. Doctors help people get better. Construction workers build houses for people to live in. Police. Comedians provide funny entertainment. Video essayists provide noises for you to put in the background while you eat cereal or draw post office mailmen. Deliver a box to its designated location. In the real world, we matter to others in hundreds of little and nuanced ways. In video games, a person's purpose is a little more centralized. What is your purpose? You rebuild broken thing I found. What is your purpose? You give me a cake for the rest of your life. What is your purpose? You are a rock for me to push over to that button. What is your purpose?
Pass butter.
All of you guys exist for me to kill so I can make number go up so I can kill funny bone man. Gee, how can Flower be so evil, killing people just to see what happens? I definitely don't feel any cognitive dissonance at all. Who's that? The point being made is that video game characters' existence is shallow, one note, existent to a purpose. However, you do serve a purpose. That is something you are absolutely certain of. At least most of the times. So, in a world where people fit highly specified roles, we have a character who knows and truly understands his place in it, and has given up all hope of ever changing things, but still spitting in the face of nihilism and just embracing the absurd. Sans found his place, and chose to do the bare minimum of what he is supposed to do. And, on the opposite end of that spectrum, we have Ralsei. Ralsei is an anomaly of a character. He is very cute, and he puts others first before him, and he wishes the best for everyone. This just as much bolsters his positivity. He wishes for a peaceful, non-violent solution for the problems presented to him, and he offers a home to the people who fought against him. In every possible definition, he would be considered a saint. But every so often, there's just these moments where you just can't read him. Moments where he says something that just doesn't sit well. Moments that really make you wonder what his whole deal is. Is he genuinely helping out people out of compassion? Or is this all a ruse? Is he the paragon of virtue that he says he is, or is he purposely manipulating us? Is he good, or is he evil? That's a question many people have asked. What is my answer? Well, let me answer that question with a question. Is Susie evil? I mean, she was completely cruel to Chris at the beginning of the game, and did a bunch of things to earn the hatred of others, and when confronted with the end of the world, she says that might sound like a good time, so is she evil? Of course not! A lot of the things that people say about her are just them misunderstanding her actions, and we don't know what her home life is, but from the bits and pieces that we got, it does not look good, so her harsh attitude may just be a result of a defense mechanism she used to deal with it. Is Noelle evil? She basically commits mass murder throughout Cyber City. That seems evil to me. But she's mainly doing those because we are forcing her and manipulating her into doing them. And she basically is half convinced that all of this is a dream, so she might not fully understand the consequences of her actions. Is Bertley evil? No. He is a kid who has been neglected and ignored for a good portion of his life, and the very second he was given praise and validation, he clinged on it for dear life. His actions are mainly him trying to live out the life that he desperately craves for. I can barely call Queen evil. She's just a machine doing the logical assumptions needed to fulfill what she thinks is best for everyone. If she needs to be a villain to make everybody happy, she would. She's just not realizing that she isn't making things better and almost caused the apocalypse by doing so. King is also merely just reacting to circumstances, believing that the Lightners abandoned him and his people, and just lashing out at us. The point is that Deltarune doesn't have evil characters. It has flawed characters, desperate characters, nihilistic characters, but not evil characters. Ralsei is not evil. Ralsei is just straight up miserable, my dude. He was alone in a ghost town for who knows how long, waiting, practicing, rehearsing for a purpose to be fulfilled. And when he finally does meet new people, one of the first things he does is offer them to hit him if they feel like it. He constantly does what is asked of him, he very often belittles himself, and he actively promotes an ideology that dehumanizes his existence. But if there is one thing we know is keeping him going, if there is one thing holding him together, the one role that he needs to play, the Prince of the Dark in a 7-act play to banish the angels' heaven. He has a job that needs to be done. Can I just ask you all one thing? Can you just boot us Deltarune real quick and hug Ralsei for a goddamn second? Ralsei doesn't need weed, my guy needs therapy. But yeah, time to actually start the analysis portion of this video. Well, I say that because it's kind of hard to do that, since Chapter 2 has been out for like 2 years now. I've replayed it several times since then, and I've watched other YouTubers fine-comb this game. And if it wasn't clear by the start of this video, I've already reached my conclusion of Ralsei. You've already reached your conclusion of Ralsei. You're just here to listen to a different take. So, I guess this isn't much of an analysis and more of a reanalysis, a backwards analysis, telling you all how I reached my conclusion. And this is my conclusion. Ralsei is a video game character. He knows that he is a video game character, and he is complicit in his involvement as a video game character. And once you start to look at Ralsei through that point of view, suddenly a lot of things start to make sense. So, let's take a look from that lens, shall we? And retrace all the steps we've tread 1,000 times before, shall we? Let's start the game, shall we? We start with Chris, our vessel, waking up. We do the standard walk around the house seeing things before we go to school, We arrive at school late. Everybody has partners except for Chris and Susie. Alphys asks us to get chalk in the storage closet. It's dark there. So dark we can't see the floor. And we waken up in a strange place. I think a lot about this room. Card Castle and Cyber City were vibrant with colors, populated with buildings and darkness. This, though? This is just desolate. If this is supposed to be a storage closet, then why is it so empty? I would expect something like chalk darkeners or buildings made of school supplies, or hell, why not a broom? In Cyber City, the whole reason everything had a carnival, roller coaster, street fair aesthetic was because of the poster of the Ferris wheel in the computer lab. Anything left inside would have had some sway in the Dark World's layout. But no, there's nothing here, nor is there any indication of anything ever being here, save for these painted eyes. This place is empty, far emptier of what I would expect a Dark World of a storage closet to be. Something that is supposed to be filled to the brim with almost anything. It's like this place was emptied out, scraped away of any indication of use, and left completely blank, just before this place was turned into a Dark World. Well, maybe one object was left inside. Somebody's gotta run the place after all. But that's the thing. It's empty now, but soon it'll be bustling with darkness as the chapters pile on. New buildings will be added, new darkners will live in them, and give their funny contributions. A storage closet is the perfect place for a pure dark fountain. Only games could live in Card Castle, only computer stuff in Cyber City. Everything can be stored in a storage closet. That's what it's there for, and Ralsei, the lonely prince, will be a little less lonely. But until then, this is all we got. We need to do our job first before we can get there. We continued through the Dark World and found Susie in a dust bowl? Then we run away from Lancer, who wants to beat us with hammers. Then we find this little castle town. And here he is. Patient zero of everyone's brain rot. He asks us to huddle up and listen. He wants to tell us of a prophecy that has been told from generation to generation. He wishes to tell us of the legend of Deltarune. We're not going to be talking about the legend, not yet at least. For now, a wild boy appear. So after me and Susie beat Lancers with hammers, Ralsei returns and Susie leaves, leaving us with him to deal with the tutorial, because he's still got a job quota he needs to fulfill. He goes on to tell us the basics of the game: defense, acting, and fighting, although he does specifically warn against it. This is one of the first hurdles of understanding Ralsei's character. If Ralsei really wants us to go all-in pacifist, why does he tell us how to fight? That doesn't seem to fit his character, but that's the thing. He wants you to recruit everyone, but you do not have to. Deltarune only has one ending. The amount of recruits you get doesn't account for anything. It's just something you can do, or if you're a true sicko, actively not do. He is, however, giving you the option, the illusion of free choice. It won't matter for anything, but it would be so awesome if you recruited everyone, right? That is why he gives you the option to fight. He is legally required to do this. Plus, this whole interaction does give you a funny moment. Shout out to Nighthawk for pointing this out. There's this one instance where he talks about tension points and he refers to it being on the left. Now, this is very funny, because if Ralsei is talking to Chris, this is assuming that they can see the bar, but if they could, it would be behind Chris. But no. Ralsei isn't talking to Chris. He is talking to us. In several instances, he mainly speaks to us through Chris, but here, this is him directly talking to us. I will talk more about Ralsei and the separation between Chris and the player, but for now, just keep that in the back of your mind. Put a pin on it. And a paperweight. Might as well some duct tape too, just to be absolutely sure. We continue on our adventure. We spare and slash or slash our enemies, and make our way through the dark world. But first, oh hey, look, cool tree. These type of trees don't contain an item that will heal you. Whatever you do, don't check the tree and use C to open your menu. Ah, dang it. Gosh fricking dang it. Well, that's it everyone. Theory cancelled. This one line of dialogue disproves everything, right? Other darkners knowing about button to press definitely eliminates my claim, right? Stay tuned for a further analysis. So we fight some bosses, reunite with Sussy, she beat K-Round, pronounced Crowned with hammers, and we meet Scene, pronounced Sham, and have a nice little nihilistic conversation with them. But that's not where I'm focusing my attention. No. My focus is shifted a little bit to the left. Ah, look at these doofuses. They need to do tutorial to make ends meet. The economy's in shambles, I tell ya. But just take a moment to read their tutorials, or particularly just how bad they are. This whole thing really gives me the vibe of ancient Greek doctors trying to understand the body by just making stuff up. I really love this section, because it does something very interesting. Because as pointed out by other Darkners, the fact that they can just clearly state video game mechanics and buttons to press, like, to Darkners, this is just a thing they do. So does that disprove my theory? Do all Darkners know that they are in videos game? Then Ralsei is an exception? Case closed, Dante eat Wade? Except, not necessarily. Here is how I interpret this. I think Darkners know about video game mechanics, but they just don't really understand them. Then Ralsei comes in and actually explains what it's for. What do I mean by this? Let's make a hypothetical situation with this puzzle dude. Hey yo, did you know that the ground is hella sexy? That's why things fall to the ground, cause they want that hot ground bod. And Ralsei will say, well, not really. All things have mass and are attracted to things that have greater mass. The Earth is greatest mass in proximity to us, so it naturally attracts to it. That's what gravity is. You telling me I'd have another reason to lose weight? And all while this is happening, Susie is just on the ceiling wondering what those two are talking about. Darkners know this is a thing. Ralsei knows why it's a thing. Lightners have no grasp of understanding. And players do the thing. You might say that's a bit of a stretch, but is it really? There's a good chance there's a microwave in your house. You put food in a metal box, press some buttons that make beep noise, and wait for the ritual to complete and end up with a hot plate. You don't know how microwaves work. I don't know how microwaves work. We know there's some scientific explanation, but for all we know, that's just magic. Ralsei is the pervert that knows how microwaves work. Now, it's easy to say that I'm working backwards from a conclusion and trying to justify anything that goes against it, and honestly, yeah, kind of. The problem is that we've already got clear examples of people who fully know about the nature of this world, and they are not doing well. I'm just saying, Ralsei is also part of that club. So is Sham to an extent, but that really depends on how much they know. But we continue anyway. And Ralsei mentioned this dude named Z. I can't believe Susie doesn't know about Z. It's that famous character Deltarune is known for. Video game is aside, we dub ourselves the Fuck Squad, fight Crowned again, and Susie decides that we aren't kill-pilled harm maxers enough for her and join Lancer. Hopefully we keep the group name of the divorce. After talking to the Starwalker, we find this room. Something interesting happens in this. Let's see if you notice it. I just went straight for the switch. Because I played this game before. I knew where that was. Ralsei didn't know, however, and basically just saw Chris walk to a random wall and do something with it. And now, we are free to go to the next room. There's also this moment during the tutorial where I hit the dummy at max, and he compliments us as if we had experience with this before. Here's what I think. If my assumption is correct, and Ralsei knows that this is a video game, I think his knowledge only extends to one save file. Cause you may have noticed this, but in Chapter 1, you were only limited to one save file. Even though the game supported 3, it wasn't until Chapter 2 that we could actually choose which file to save, or create a new save file for reasons. But for each save file, it's its own world, with some deviations. But for Ralsei, this is the one he is in. So the Ralsei in this save slot is different from the Ralsei from that save slot. They are all still Ralsei. It's just that there are 3 of them now, and honestly, who doesn't want 3 Ralseis? And before you say anything, I am not going into multiple timeline theories territory. After the best moment in the gang gets back together, and is swiftly captured and brought to the dungeon. Susie escaped, and we have this moment of controlling her, or rather, watching her not being controlled by us. Kinda puts emphasis on how Chris is really a puppet to us, them being incapable of doing anything that isn't within the bounds of our interaction. We need to make a choice before Chris can put in their input. But anyway, Susie beats Lancer with hammers, then stops beating Lancer with hammers, and goes back to get us. Ralsei being in the middle of saying something. I wonder what those two were talking about. Anyway, they leave prison. After a long elevator ride with a heartwarming conversation inside, what do? Obviously, we go back inside. There's, something else we need to do. Shovel is an interesting topic. All the illusions of us already playing a game, mentioning the numbers game of our HP, it truly makes us wonder what sort of freedom he thinks he has. The whole reason he was imprisoned is because he wielded unspeakable power, then to be locked away, talking and foreshadowing key players, reusing assets of the game for his own boss fight, or just being a really good boss fight. All this power he has and uses. All 'cause he met a strange someone.
Metamorphosis.
What? where was I? Oh, right, Car Castle. We go up the Car Castle and beat the puzzles of rules, pronounced Ruxels, and because of the Ruxels of 3, we fight Crowned again. This time, Susie puts in her input, as Ralsei's suggestions aren't working. Because Susie actually has a habit of brute-forcing solutions in a way that even Ralsei can't consider, it's interesting. I wonder how this will come up in the future. But now, it's time to defeat the villain of the Thursday. And then we kill him. Actually, no, I'm not just gonna breeze past this like I've done with everything else. There's actually is something I want to talk about, and that has to do with this. If you managed not to be a complete jerkwad while playing the game, you get the ending where Castle Darkners overthrow the king. But that isn't the only ending. If you were a complete jerkwad, you are kindly and civilly told to get the hell out of here. It's not much. You close a dark fountain and finish the chapter, but it's stuff like this that I feel is fundamentally what the game is about. There is only one ending, but that's just the destination. It's the journey that matters. I know we say this jokingly, but really, I mean this with all seriousness. Perhaps the real Deltarune was in fact the friends we made along the way. Of course, you don't need to. You can be a jerk and still be the hero that saves the world. If that's your power fantasy, I guess. Do you face the futility of your actions with kindness or brashness? Ralsei has an answer to that question. Finally, after a long journey, we go to close the dark fountain, but Ralsei wishes to talk to us for just a moment. He stumbles for a bit, but takes his hat off to cover his face. After prodding by Susie, he shows his face to us. I think about this moment every now and then, because at the very start of the game, we see him as a hooded figure, somebody who could be anybody. He drops the hood, but the Prince of the Dark is still cloaked in shadows. Now, he drops a hat and reveals himself to us once again, an almost familiar face. Slowly, over time, we learn more about him, and he opens himself up to us. But these moments also show one of the core motifs about Ralsei: concealment. He is always hiding something. But we got a dark fountain to close. It was all just play pretend. Toys, cards, pieces and blocks to play around with. Play the hero of the day and escape the harsh reality, but it's all just a dream, is it not? But these toys do have somewhere to go. I'll make sure they'll have a home in my castle town. But that's for tomorrow. We still have today to deal with. Learn all the gossip and news of the townsfolk. Enjoy reality as much as we can. Catch up with family members. Enjoy the little pleasures you can muster. It's been a long day, and when we get home, we shall call it that, a day. And from one dream, we move on to the next. But somebody else has a different idea. Oh, darn. Looks like Chris ate all that pie. Dang. I mean, that is their knife after all. Pretty self-incriminating, huh, Chris? After a long night, huh? Gee, I guess you really spent a long time eating that pie, right? Gosh, Chris even sleeping throughout the whole class. Whoopsie-daisy. It seems like eating all of that pie was a very hard and taxing exercise that took a lot of energy out of Chris, huh? 'Cause that's all that Chris did, right? 'Cause that's definitely the only thing they did last night. Oh hey, the TV is now plugged in. Gee, I wonder what that's for. Anyway, after Chris slept through the whole class like a corpse, Susie drags us into the Dark World closet, and we and Ralsei reunite. But Castletown is a bit empty, so Ralsei asks us to go to the classroom next to the closet. You'd think I'd point this as proof or something, but honestly, not really. I think darkners are just aware of locations like the classroom and the computer lab. Plus, there is a door between the storage closet and the abandoned classroom, so it's not really rocket science. But after being very normal about our stuff, we bring everything to the storage closet. Now my castle town is bustling with life. A shop, a bakery, a cafe, a club, the four essentials of a functioning economy. A nice little town. I truly do wonder what this town will be like after 5 more chapters. Ralsei, come here, please. No, I'm not mad. I'm not mad. Just have a seat, please. What the fuck is this? So, the town's name is based on the name I input, and the name I use as a save file. It's funny, honestly. In any other game, this wouldn't even cause people to bat an eye, but the fact that this is a game made by Toby Fox, who uses game mechanics like this as part of the story, is all the more reason to pay attention to this. Someone told the Cerudin the town's name, and there are only 2 people I can think of that would know that, and for the sake of my own sanity, I will assume that they got it from Ralsei. So, Ralsei, quick question. How the fuck do you know this? Every other instance of him name-dropping a mechanic can be chalked up as simply knowing how the world works. This, though? This is too specific. Why does he know this? How does he know this? One of the answers I can come up with is, due to the save points, can he just check and see who is saving? His knowledge is only limited to one save file, as mentioned before. He doesn't really know what the player has done through multiple playthroughs. He just knows the actions he needs to make and when. Unfortunately, we do have a school project we need to work on, and we should go to the library for that. Alright, I'll deal with it. I ain't done with you. So, we drop by the library and walk over to the computer lab. Ah, I see what you did there. While we have computer at home, Chris and Susie jump in. We find Noelle and meet Queen, and we are forced to fight. You sense a sudden presence, huh? The timing is weirdly specific, but I'll believe your story. For now. For the sake of brevity, I'm gonna try to skip over a bunch, but I will pop in and add in comments such as, to help us out, Ralsei activates magical stool form arm to help Chris reach the controls. actively choosing putting himself down to help us play the video game. We succeed, because we are such awesome gamers. We go around town and play funny letters game, getting Twitter blue while we are at it. We are, however, stopped by the revolution. We try to beat them because they think we are on the side of evil, but no matter how much we dance, they realize our vibes are whack and attempt to beat us with hammers, so we just keep dancing. And dancing, and dancing, and dancing, and dancing. Okay, good. They are gone. Susie helped us out, and that boss fight is over. Good. Now, Susie, what the fuck did you just do? Susie, quite literally, just made a fucking game mechanic out of thin air. I mean, she took what Chris did and ultimately made it her own thing, but that's the thing. Susie has made a point that she just does not follow the rules. She is actively avoiding being trapped into the strict code of conduct, saying fuck that and doing her own thing. Susie learning healing magic is a great character moment. I can concur with that. This, though, she's just made a point of not following the game. There is more about this to talk about. But for now, what was supposed to be Chris's thing, our thing, well, it's still our thing. We still ask her to do things, and she still at least does that. I think that it does go to show that this game isn't just static and solid. The game's fundamentals change based on characters' interaction. But we already knew that, did we? For now, though, let's not think about that, cause we got a chicken to defenestrate. Alright, so after Ralsei heals Susie with the power of friendship, he activates the mandatory choice cutscene for us to choose which character to go with, but Susie decides she doesn't want to make Chris make all the choices and chooses for us. Part of me wonders about this section, and what the game was supposed to be like. Not the game that Toby is making. I'm talking about the game that Deltarune was supposed to be. The Deltarune that Ralsei thinks he is a part of. 'Cause what if we could make that choice and go with Ralsei? Maybe we could have never encountered Noelle, or if we did, Ralsei could have at least prevented her from activating a few spells. But that doesn't happen. Susie made that choice for us. A first of many sequence breaks that soon start to pile up. But we aren't talking about that. Let's have some tea. Oh hey, they give some differing results depending on who drinks what. Gee, I wonder what that's all about. Yo, look at this dude. What's that? Yes, of course I will install Kanoto Pet. Step 1, delete System 32. You got it, boss. Anyway, we return to Ralsei and Susie, and she now learns a healing spell. if my assumption is correct, if we could have chosen a different path, then I think Susie would have never been able to learn the healing spell. I guess some sequence breaks are for the best. But right now, Queen is putting people into cages and forgot about him, and he was made into one of Queen's butlers. But yeah, Susie tried to heal Lancer, who's suffering from being in the wrong Dark World syndrome, and he turns to stone. Ralsei tells us that this is because each Dark World is personalized for a specific theming. Because he doesn't fit, he is incompatible. I've said this before that Ralsei conceals things and information, but this? I think he's actually being honest with this. And it actually does make sense. Why? Okay, I'm now gonna step away from it and just give you something of a headcanon. Well, I mean, this whole video is my headcanon analysis, but this is fully my headcanon. First, let's talk about some ground rules. What do we know about Dark Worlds? Answer? Absolutely nothing. We know about theming and fountains and a sort of logic, but other than that, we don't know how Dark Worlds work. The fact that there is an entire world inside a small room breaks any of our preconceived laws of spatial placement. This is why I don't like how people bring up Birdley and Noelle sitting. The fundamental fact is that we just don't know how Dark Worlds work, why they work, or how they function with the logic of the world. It's literally magic, you guys. But magic follows a logic. So, let's talk about what I like to call Dante's Dark World Fountain Spectrum headcanon. Okay, so, how do I think Dark Worlds work? Well, let's assume this isn't just darkness. This is advanced darkness. Photons reading negative. So, how does its inverse, light, work? Well, light, or white light specifically, is a combination of all colors. Red, green, and blue are all lights used for pixels on a computer screen that you're watching on, but that's because you can make any color out of those three colors, but once you combine all colors, you get white light. So, let's say the darkness in Deltarune works the same in some extent. Castletown's Dark Fountain is pure darkness. It has all of the dark colors. However, Card Castle Dark Fountain is, let's say, blue. All the denizens of Card Castle are tinted blues, so Lancer would be able to survive there. However, in Cyber City, the Dark Fountain is green, so while Queen and the denizens would be able to live there, Lancer wouldn't be because his darkness doesn't fit for them, so he would just turn to stone. In other words, colorless. But once they are at Castletown, everything is fine, because that's pure darkness. It has blue and green and red and orange and yellow and purple and so on. Why am I talking about this? No reason. It's just something that I've had in the back of my head for a while. It's definitely not this deep, but I like thinking about things, so I made this. But the point is that when Ralsei says this, I do fundamentally believe that he is being honest. But like I said, this is just my headcanon, because, in reality, we don't know how Dark Worlds work. Remember that. Because right now, I've got a game to play. I mean, I've heard of antivirus, but this is ridiculous! Sorry. That was disrespectful. I just needed something to cut the tension. I'm sorry, it's just everything about him, it's just a tragedy through and through, and the sheer desperation he felt, the absolute depths he fell to. I know you all really want me to talk about this dialogue, and I will. Just not now. I know, I keep bringing something up and just not talking about it, only to do so at a later moment. I am aware of that, but this is a can of worms that many people have tried to open before, and I just want to do it with the right gloves on. So, just the two of us again. Perfect. Yo, is Queen a Swans fan? I mean, I know the whole thing about this dark world is that it is inspired out of fairgrounds and roller coasters, and I know that this in particular is an off-reference. But this just feels very intentional, because we all know what those kinds of birds mean. But we also have this dialogue. Ralsei further elaborating on his loneliness before Chris and Susie showing up, not knowing what to do when they did show up, and how they will react to Ralsei, or even what being Ralsei is. Damn, crippling self-deprecation, toxic need to appease others, and identity issues to add on top of all of that. My boy needed therapy yesterday. But it does make sense for him to be like this. I want you to really put yourself in his shoes for just a moment. Imagine you were just left alone in a castle for who knows how long, waiting for people to arrive, not just out of loneliness, but there's also the added stress of, being a prophesized hero, and you need to act in a certain way, because the fate of the world depends on it. Not to mention that you're just an object for people to use, and you can only value yourself off of what you can do to serve others. Of course he would be racked with issues of self-worth, being completely submissive to others' input and not setting boundaries for oneself. And there is an argument to be made that he is correct in doing so. Because, let's just remember this, Deltarune is a video game. If a video game does something you don't like, or annoys you in some way, what do? You turn it off, and play something else. Which makes sense. The purpose of a video game is to provide an enjoyable experience. If the game is not enjoyable, you don't play the video game. So Ralsei has to be the people pleaser that he is, because if he isn't, he risks causing the end of the world by you pressing escape for the final time. He has to be fluffy and cute and an adorable prince that he presents himself as, because if he doesn't, then you won't like him, and you won't want to see him anymore. So you don't play the game. He is ultimately in a situation where the survival of everyone is dependent on him being who you want him to be. That's what I think about the post-fight dialogue. The fact that he is very wanting to slip this under the rug and for us to not think about it is mainly because it's, honestly, screwed up to think about. Have you ever played a video game or watched a show or movie or read a book and everything is great, but there's just this one thing that is just very jarring to think about? This feels like an attempt at that. You are confronted with the genuine horrors of Spamton's desperation and his willingness to try to reach something that he could have never had. A man whose mind was so broken after learning the truth of the world through one phone call. And Ralsei is just trying to cover it up and ask us to not think about this, because it is fucked up. It also just be the fact that he's socially isolated his whole life and just does not have the capabilities of handling such a scenario like this, and he's doing his best to keep everyone going along with the game, because if he doesn't, it risks the fate of the world. Now, all that being said, when you press, "It's nice being with you," when he turns towards us, blushing, is that admiration towards the player? Or is this him keeping your attention out of desperation? Maybe it's a mix of both. This is ultimately the role of Ralsei. Whoever Ralsei is supposed to be. Hopefully in the future he'll understand that we love and appreciate him for who he is. And God damn it, this guy again. Actually, no, I'm not playing this game. You get sword. I know what you are. Anyway, we go on. Oh, but first. But alas, here we go. Gee, I wonder what Susie is doing right now. Oh cool, she got to Noelle. Gee, I wonder what Chris and Ralsei are doing right now. No, really. What are they doing? Because you probably noticed this, but we always seem to reunite with them while these two are in the middle of a conversation. Once is happenstance, twice is coincidence. But if we see this a third time, it is certainly enemy action. What are these two talking about? Oh, how I love to be the fly on the wall for that conversation. But I can't be. They specifically make sure I can't listen to their conversation. Funny, too, I can choose no, and they simply wouldn't talk about anything. So, it's specifically something that they are doing while my focus is away. We can only grasp at the possible clues and contexts of what these two are like alone. And this is where the tea comes in. Because here's the thing, we've all heard of tea theory by now, but to summarize it, is that the amount of health a specific tea heals is based on the personal feelings of two characters. Susie likes Chris, Ralsei, and Noelle. Noelle is infatuated with Susie, and while Chris has a high opinion of Susie, Ralsei and Noelle aren't up on her level. People have pointed out that this is evidence that Chris doesn't like Ralsei, or just hates him, but I don't agree with that. Noelle and Chris were childhood friends, and there's no indication that Chris hates Noelle. Plus, logically speaking, if Chris dislikes Ralsei, the tea would have given 0 HP. Hell, they would probably lose health if they drink it. Give me the onions on tea and I'll meet God the second the water touches the leaves. No, I don't think Chris hates Ralsei. Hell, Chris is down to flirt with Ralsei if prompted. So, why is Ralsei so low? Because they literally met yesterday? Chris knew Noelle and Susie for a good while to form an opinion. Ralsei is still just a dude to Chris. But Ralsei has been waiting forever for Chris and Susie, so he obviously has a high opinion of them. That opinion may have shifted after realizing how just straight up weird those two are, but he still likes Chris and Susie. And I say Chris, not the player. I mean Chris. Ralsei may still have high esteem towards the player, but he does know that Chris is their own person. That's what these conversations are for. These two to discuss matters away from our attention. As such, Ralsei is the only person so far who has truly talked to Chris. Even so, we still don't know what they talked about. Actually, I think I have a good idea. Alright, I'm going to take a quick little pause in my half analysis, half theory crafting video, and I'm going to do a segment of full theory crafting. Because I've said this before, and I'll proudly say it again, I believe Chris is the knight. I think it's the easiest answer who the knight is, I think it has the best narrative potential, but it is ultimately a theory. One that several people don't like apparently. A lot of people have suggested other characters as potential knight candidates, and while I like some of what they have come up with, I still believe that Chris is the knight. Why, you ask? Well, for starters. But I guess literally opening a dark fountain in front of our eyes isn't enough proof for some of you. As such, this next portion of the video, it'll be the only time that I'll talk about Chris Knight Truthism. So, if you don't want that, please skip to this point. Otherwise, enter with caution, you are not welcome here. Are they gone? I think they're gone. Alright. If you are still here, then you must also be a holy and zealous Chris Knight's believer, standing against those savage and barbaric anyone else believers. Anyway, so we all agree that Chris has been opening up the fountains. Why? Because that is Chris's knife. Queen used specifically a knife to represent the opening of the fountain. Chris is a character who is commonly associated with knives. They look up knives, click on ads with knives. And at the very start of this chapter, Toriel specifically says that that is Chris's knife. In the pie tin, Chris has a motif of knives. A knife has been used to open the fountain. Chris opened the fountain. That is what they were doing, the comment of the long night. Chris sleeping through the class because they haven't gotten much sleep. And the fact that it's a point that Chris moves very slowly leads to the conclusion that Chris opened up the fountain in the night. Chris in the night with a knife. Chris is a knight with a knife and a knight. Got it? We all agree with that, right? Okay. Now, here is the important question I need to ask. Does Ralsei know? Does Ralsei know Chris is the knight? Does he know? Because here's the thing. It can honestly go either way. If Ralsei doesn't know, then this could be a great moment of betrayal. The creator of the Dark Fountains risks destroying each Dark World. But if he knows that Chris is the knight, that actually would explain a lot. We don't know what those two are talking about, so what if they're doing battle plans while the soul isn't paying attention? What both of them need to do, because here's the thing. The major pieces of evidence that people point to of Chris not being the knight is the fact that Ralsei suddenly senses a dark fountain right after Chris and Susie leave, and right before they walk over a few feet to the library. That timing is too specific. But, as stated before, I think Chris did it in the middle of the night. So in other words, the dark fountain was already open, and Ralsei left us, the player, to seem like we just found it. Now you may be wondering, why would Ralsei do that? Doesn't he make a great point that the roaring is awful and basically the end of the world? Even condemns Birdley for making a dark fountain in chapter 2. Why would he be complicit with the creation of fountains? To that I have to say, I'll get to that. 'Cause this is actually one of the things that a lot of fans have noticed, and something that I hopefully wish to answer. And this is what I like to call The Roaring Paradox, which I will do in due time. So, here are the facts as we know them. Factor number 1. Chris and Ralsei spend some time alone together and have private conversations away from the player. Fact number 2. Chris does things in the middle of the night, and in one instance, opens a dark fountain right in front of us. Immediate conclusion of fact number 2. Chris opened the Chapter 2 fountain. Immediate conclusion of fact number 1. Ralsei knew that Chris was going to open the fountain and lied when he said that he suddenly felt a dark presence. Follow-up conclusion of fact number 1. Ralsei discussed this with Chris and provided an alibi so that Chris would not seem like they were the knight. Immediate contradiction. Chris opened the fountain right in front of us. If they wanted to make it impossible for them to be the knight, why would they do that? Counterpoint. Does us knowing that Chris is the knight actually matter? Because here's the thing. We can't communicate of what we know, and even if we did, Chris can bias that information to make it seem like an unserious claim. Follow-up conclusion of fact number 2. Chris spent a good time planning things ahead, making sure the TV was plugged in, making sure we used the bathroom sink instead of the kitchen one, making sure that there was no pie to eat so that Toriel had to make a new one with Susie, giving Chris time to slash the tires. Making sure things happen at a specific time, making sure things go in a specific way. That sounds oddly familiar to someone. There is one truth that we know above all else. The roaring is going to happen. If you know that's the direction things will go, wouldn't it be best if that road was paved by someone that you are supposed to trust? Wouldn't it be best if the hero is the one to lead that charge? Plus, I don't think the big reveal is supposed to happen yet. 'Cause we know that Chris is the knight. Others don't. Or, at least, they're not supposed to yet. So that's why he lied here. To make sure things remain on script.
Everyone's here!
Finally, the Fuck Squad is back together. Fun fact. Did you know that if you go all the way back over here, Ralsei will make a comment on Susie and Noelle, even though they couldn't have possibly seen it? I just thought that was very interesting. Anyway, we finally go back to Queen and... Oh god! Queen is controlling Bertley! How dare she use it another person and puppeteer their actions against their will and force them to harm their friends? Gee, why do I feel such a sense of guilt? Anyway, we defeat Queen, and now we're going to... Oh shit, what that? Fuck. She got away. But we catch up to her. But needing to be determined enough. It makes me wonder what the reason all of this is happening, because you need to have the will and the want to make a dark fountain. To make everyone happier? Maybe, but there can be other reasons too. But we need to defeat this tyrant first. Luckily, we've got friends to help us. This is why you make the effort of recruiting everyone. If it's not for just the simple completion, just seeing the faces pass on by and offer their support is enough to bring the push needed to make sure everybody is welcome. 'Cause now, we've got a queen to kill.
Round 1.
Fight!
Even after all of that, she's willing to do a cheap move like that. But luckily, Noelle is there to stand up to her. Ralsei, read the room, Ralsei. Now's not the time for this, but it does show how goal-oriented he is. We beat the boss, now let's not think about it anymore and go to the next thing. Right, guys? Guys? But that's how all the old stories go, right? Once you beat the bad guy, all is well, and everything good now triumphs. But that's not how the real world works. Sometimes, an idea can just stick around longer than just the ending. Sometimes, people are willing to go to the dream. Queen tells us she simply didn't know what the knight actually wanted, only that she was just making assumptions. But that is over now. She stops her plans, offers a goodbye ceremony, only then to be told that she can crash at Castletown now. She walks away once this happens, leaving Ralsei alone with Noelle and Birdley as Chris and Susie exit stage right. Okay, now that we are away from them, let's talk about that moment, shall we? When Chapter 2 came out, Ralsei explained the roaring, and the first thing that happened is that, well, people asking us why didn't he tell us that before? This is absolutely an apocalyptic scenario. The literal end of the world. Why didn't he tell us the valuable information as that? He did. It's literally the first thing he tells us, actually. Or did you press no on that? But that's the thing. The legend is deliberately written like it was translated from generation to generation from many different tongues, so it could be that just Ralsei assumed that they all immediately knew the danger of it. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I want to talk about is this. Remember at the very beginning of the game, Ralsei told us the benefits of sparing enemies? The thing about that is that there can only be enemies to spare if there are more Dark Worlds. The only way that it is possible is for the Roaring Knight to open them. Each Dark World risks a new possible roaring, and yet Ralsei is anticipating more denizens for Castletown. That is what I like to call the Roaring Paradox. Because you see, the prophecy can only be fulfilled if the roaring happens, because it is going to happen. That is the biggest Chekhov's gun of the game. The roaring is something that can happen, meaning it's going to happen. This is basic storytelling 101. If that's the case, why doesn't he let the roaring happen? Isn't that what he wants? No! Actually, let's do a little test. I want everyone to stand up and run a marathon. Right now. Right now, I say. Right now. Don't even prepare. Just do it right now. I'm not even testing you. Do it right now. Oh, you can't? That's the point. A lot of you just aren't physically capable of running that much for that long. If you are, more power to you, I guess. So, if the roaring happened now, everyone would basically be doomed because they aren't fully prepared for it. Fortunately for us, I say we got 4 or 5 chapters before it is supposed to happen. So, that's the important part. The roaring can't happen yet. That's one explanation. Now here's another one that doesn't contradict the previous one. Notice how I mentioned that there are 7 chapters, right? We meet Ralsei on chapter 1, and we continue the adventure on chapter 2. So let's say you are a character in a video game, and this video game has 7 chapters. The first chapter involves you doing a specific thing. Let's say pressing a button. That was chapter 1. Doing the thing that was needed to be done. So, if you know that there are 7 chapters, that means you're gonna have to do it again. That's a very simple logical deduction. If you didn't need to press another button, then there wouldn't need to be a chapter 2. So, the fact that you are in chapter 2 means that you know you need to press another button. This is all my assumption, but if Ralsei knew that we are playing chapter 2, he would then know that we are going to find a dark fountain. because that's how the video game is supposed to go. He's trusting the process. But he just witnessed a possible roaring event almost occur. This isn't supposed to happen yet. So he tells everyone front and center what would happen if we did that. We would be thrown in the meat grinder, because after each Dark World, our level increases, so does our health, and other stuff too. Plus, we need to make sufficient armor to get the right healing, and get the correct equipment for them. The roaring isn't supposed to happen yet, both narratively speaking and gameplay-wise. So, he told them what would happen. But that's the thing. They now know to open a Dark World. If they wanted to, or at least get desperate enough, either one of them could open up a Dark World and risk a premature roaring, and the game is absolutely capable of diverging from its path, as previously shown. But, if this was all a dream, then they could just think it was impossible, and Susie told Noelle that this was all a dream, and Ralsei has at least tangential knowledge of what those two did, and this is a long adventure. Burley is tired of being controlled by Queen, and Noelle is mentally exhausted, and Ralsei knows how to pacify and put Lightners to sleep. Has now been left alone with both of them. So why doesn't he just tie up loose ends? What? Am I saying he would manipulate others into forgetting their entire adventure? Of course not. I'm just saying that Ralsei would, want to protect a premature roaring scenario. Those are definitely not the same things. Besides, he has already had enough to deal with. I say let him have a little dubious morality as a treat. It's for the greater good, after all. But, yeah, Castletown has expanded, Queen has joined the court, more Darkners offering their skills and talents and inputs to the Castletown. This makes it better for the future. And that's about it. I think I talked about every major moment of Chapter 2, or at least one that referenced Ralsei. Yes, that's all. I finished the recap section of my video. It's all done. I did everything I was required to do. Now all I need to do is proceed with the final thoughts. Proceed with wrapping up the analysis. All I need to do is proceed. Hey, wait a minute! This game is broken. Things were supposed to happen, but didn't. Not only did a character fundamentally change in a way that they can never go back from, but a character is now dead. One of the blue beads has now broken away from its track. The game has now forever deviated from its intended course. We knew the game was supposed to go a certain way, but then the input of one character has chosen a different path, but all in all, they could have still ended up in the same destination. Now, I don't think there's any way of coming back from this. With a few carefully chosen actions, choosing the wrong one can abort the route entirely, but if you make these choices, you can manipulate a poor girl into murdering her best friend. Something has gone fundamentally wrong. What do you do when it becomes clear that things can't continue as they are any longer? What do you do when you know things need to be reined in? Do you call it quits and just throw in the towel? Or do you proceed to the best of your ability? I'm asking this not just because I want an answer, but because I wrote this spark 3 times now, and this is currently the 2nd time I'm dubbing this. Turns out final thoughts are harder to write if you keep thinking about things, especially when we're talking about a game that is only 2/7 complete. We're trying to reach the buried treasure when we only have the directions to a Wendy's. But we will reach that destination. I'm just trying to enjoy the journey as best I can. Theory crafting is incredibly fun, but we only got so much information to work with. So, with the little information that we have, let's put the pieces together and at least attempt an answer. Ralsei knows of a prophecy of the Roaring. He knows that he is the predestined hero to save the world, and he fully intends to fulfill that purpose. Ralsei knows that he is in a video game. He knows that he is the cute, lovable, adorable mascot that will sell lots of marketable plushies. And he intends to fulfill that purpose. Who told him that? Who told Ralsei about the prophecy? Who told him that he is in a video game? Because no one could have. He was alone in Castletown. The reason the dummy looks like him is because he has literally nobody else to base it off of. Up until we entered the storage closet, he was alone. I can accept that darkners have intrinsic knowledge about the world, knowing where the classroom is, knowing where the computer lab is. Queen, however, doesn't know that we are playing a video game. King doesn't know either. Yet, Ralsei does. Like Jevil and Spamton, that was something that was told to them by a strange someone. I think we all know who told him. We know nothing about Gaster. The very few things that we know about him are just buried with layers of cryptic existence, possible chances, and the weirdest game mechanics. But once we do have a sliver of something that can be considered him, suddenly, and without warning, it has a habit of disappearing, as if it was never even there. I'm going to make the assumption that the person speaking in the Goner segment, the person speaking in the save files, and the person in the game over screen is Gaster. If this is true, then he just exists outside of the game, with the code and the assets. So what's stopping him from meddling even further? He can meet Jevel, call Spampton, but Ralsei is alone, and he needs to be the Lonely Prince. But that doesn't necessarily stop him. He can just make himself disappear, forgotten, but still leave an impact. What's stopping him from just injecting that information into Ralsei's mind, rewriting the code to make someone act in a very specific way? That's how I think he knows. Just another victim. But maybe this experiment was a success. But why? I feel like all of this effort to cover the tracks only make things even more suspicious. Only make things stick out even more. Only make him harder to put our trust in him. What if that's the point? I've talked about this before, and I'm not the only one to point out all of the religious motifs. Banishing the angel's heaven, Noelle's angelic connections, Chris's demonic connections, and hell's bubbles roaring from the depths. Angels, heaven, churches, light, darkness, depths, hell, demons. So, let's extend that motif to Ralsei. Ralsei is devoted to Lightners to a religious degree. He sees us as a god to him. This is very much a metaphor for religious fundamentalism and, perhaps as I stated before, indoctrination. But there is another metaphor, one that fits our fluffy little goat boy a little more. Ralsei is a scapegoat. To summarize, there used to be a practice of taking a living goat, and onto that goat would be the confessions, transgressions, and sins. Then that goat would be led into the forest, carrying all of those sins and burdens with it. To simplify, the scapegoat is the pre-designated guilty party, the one that will take the blame for when everything goes wrong. Everybody else will be free of sin, because only one person will be the designated sinner. Now, tell me, when everything is said and done, when the newest chapter comes out, when something bad goes wrong and everything goes to shit, who will be the person that everybody will blame? Who will be the person people point to? I ask this because we only got two answers. We can blame all of this as the machinations of Gaster, or the mystery man, or him. But can we? Because how can we point to someone that isn't there? Who was never there to begin with? We don't have a canonical face to associate with him. We only have text. So we go to the next best thing. Someone who does have a face that we can call a liar. Someone who we can call a friend that betrayed us. Someone to bear the weight of all the guilt. Because it's going to be Ralsei. There's already people who say that he's a cruel, manipulative mastermind behind everything. People will say that he is a cold, heartless, uncaring demon. People who will say that he is pure evil. Even if they don't go as far to say that, there are other ways to blame him that doesn't go so far as to say that he is literally the devil. You can point to an instance and have him be interpreted in the way that is less than flattering. Hell, I've done this in this video. It's easy to justify those interpretations. It's easy to blame Ralsei. Maybe that is his real purpose. To be blamed. And you know what the worst part is? I think he knows. I think by the end of this, he knows that he will be the one people will call a villain. Because if everyone else is free of the burdens of sin, maybe they will be happy to blame him. Everyone else is innocent if he is the only sinner. Because that's how the world works, right? It's easy to fall into black and white morality. It's very easy to fall into us versus them mentality. It's easy to always assume the worst. But that's just it. It's easy. The world isn't light or dark. It's a balance. Things are more complicated than that. But it's still hard to break away from that mindset. It takes a lot of time, a lot of mental reprogramming, and needs a lot of support. But hopefully there are friends to help. Friends who will pull you away from the road that you think is the only one for you. Friends who will change how everything is for something that is fundamentally better. Ralsei is going to be the final boss of the Snowgrave route. There are no other answers. It has to be Ralsei. If you really think about it, it goes against everything the game is setting up. Our choices don't matter, except they do in this case. Only one ending, but can we carve out a new one? Be the sequence break that cracks open the egg, revealing the yolk of the bird that was supposed to hatch before devouring it to feed yourself. Ralsei had been preparing for this role for his whole existence, waiting for the heroes to save the world, his lonely world. Ralsei had been waiting for us to guide him, lead him, force him, hurt him, and blame him for everything that might go wrong. What we have is a game that may lead him to be the sacrificial goat to wash away our sins. But instead we choose the killing of a sacred deer. Instead we choose a vessel to be completely suppressed to the point that they are an unthinking, powerless puppet. Instead we choose a strictly defined, tragic ending because we were not happy with a predetermined good one. Ralsei did everything he could to appease us, go along with whatever we forced Chris to say, sweep the bad under the rug to make us happy, being what we want him to be. He respected our choices. We didn't respect him. He's just a Darkner after all, a being beneath a Lightner, a fictional character in a fictional world, in a device. He does not matter to us. He's just a character in a video game. That's his job, after all. So, perhaps, one final act, one final attempt to reconsider, one final chance to right the wrong he allowed us to do. He is going to give us what we really wanted. A final battle between the person who gave everything to us and we who are not content with enough. Damn, Gaster really found a lonely gay wizard and decided to give him a religious guilt. But that's my conclusion of what I think about Ralsei. At least, the conclusion that can be made with what little information we have so far. Thank you all for watching. I really put in a lot of effort into this, and I wanted to make it as entertaining as possible. You might not even agree with me, to be honest, and that's fine. You all have your own interpretation and theories. I'm just offering opinions and perspective of what I think is, well, honestly, the funniest way of interpreting Ralsei. The man's literally just a minimum wage worker trying to do his goddamn job. But thank you all, once again. And I know it sounds corny for me to say this, but, like and subscribe and hit the bell, please? I think I've earned it at this point. This is my most ambitious video so far, and honestly, I learned a lot of things about Blender while making it. Oh yeah, just in case you didn't know, I use fucking Blender to edit my videos. It actually has a dedicated video editing software in it, and the whole shebang is free, so you can just hop in at any time. But I will take this experience to heart when I work on other videos, since I do want to make things that aren't Deltarune related. I've made several videos about Deltarune so far, and I kind of just want to make something else just to clear my palette. That being said, Do y'all like vampires?